I mean, Armando's great and all, but like, maybe don't bring your fugitive talking monkey to Ape Oppression Central. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Continuing my Planet of the Apes review series, today I'm going to be talking about the fourth film in the franchise, 1972's sci-fi sequel, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content, like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Conquest of the Planet of the Apes stars Roddy McDowall, Don Murray, and Ricardo Montalbán, and was directed by J. Lee Thompson. Set 20 years after the previous film, it tells the story of the beginning of the Ape Rebellion, led by Zira and Cornelius' son, Caesar. There's something fascinating about watching a bleak and downbeat movie. It's uncomfortable, and not necessarily the most enjoyable thing, but you want to see how it plays out. Maybe you're hopeful for a positive swing, or maybe you're just morbidly curious, but whatever it is, you're compelled to stick it through. The previous Planet of the Apes films had ended in ways that felt final, either for the story or for the franchise. But the third film, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, ended in a way that left you expecting and wanting more. Maybe not wanting more of the pain and grim tone, but wanting more of the story at least. And this fourth film is a genuine continuation of that story, launching things 20 years into the future. Even though this movie was released only a year after its predecessor, the imposing concrete architecture of the Century City filming locations and the monochromatic human costumes made it feel suitably futuristic, in a moderately dystopian kind of way. The prophecies in ape history referenced throughout the previous three films finally come to a head here, as we get to watch the beginning of the end. For humans, that is. Conquest of the Planet of the Apes follows Zira and Cornelius' son, who has since been renamed Caesar. It's been 20 years, and a lot has changed about the world we were familiar with in the previous film. The stories that Zira and Cornelius recounted during their hearing of the pet plague and dog bonfires have all come to fruition, and primitive apes are already being enslaved and trained to do menial tasks for humans. Having lived in secrecy at Armando's circus for 2 decades, Caesar begins the story a bit naive and with a sense of humor, but he undergoes quite the transformation over the course of the film. Due in large part to his heightened intelligence and his ability to understand humans, he quickly finds himself a natural leader among the apes. This begins helpfully and peaceably enough, but after witnessing the extent of human brutality outside the walls of the circus tent, he develops into a passionate and angry leader of an uprising. Interestingly, Roddy McDowall returned to the franchise again here, not to play Cornelius, but rather Caesar this time. There are certainly some similarities between these two characters, but McDowall is really able to craft a different personality and even a different type of physical performance for Caesar here. Previously, McDowall's ape had been a supporting character, or part of a leading duo with Kim Hunter's Zira. But this time, as Caesar, he is very much the sole lead and focus of the story. Dark and bleak is certainly nothing new for the Planet of the Apes franchise. Each of the previous 3 films in the series had covered downbeat ground before punching the audience in the gut with a bleak revelation to end the film. And Conquest of the Planet of the Apes does not disappoint in that regard, delivering even more downfall of human civilization gloominess. It's also a very angry movie, definitely the angriest of the series up to that point, manifesting in some extremely violent moments and a stretch of unsettling riot and rebellion scenes. There are 2 versions of this film, the original uncut version and the theatrical cut. The uncut version is quite a bit more violent, and features the franchise's trademark brand of bleak ending, albeit much angrier than usual. The preview screening of this cut didn't go over so well, with parents carrying their terrified kids out of the theater, so changes were made to soften the violence and offer a more conciliatory ending in hopes of getting a G rating. I've seen both versions, and even though the riot sequences run a little long and start to get a bit tedious, I think the original uncut version is superior, and more in line with the franchise's trajectory. As had been the case with all of the Planet of the Apes films, this fourth movie has a good deal of thematic heft to it. Honing in on one previously addressed theme in particular, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes is a thinly veiled allegory for oppression and racial injustice. With direct mention of slavery and the link between power and freedom, it's a bit on the nose with its themes when compared to the previous films, but that doesn't mean it's not effective. This movie's got another familiar and fairly one-note villain, and speeds through the story at a rapid-fire rate, but the shorter length isn't the worst thing for a film like this. The plot details here aren't exactly the most memorable or standout for the franchise, but the unsettling image of hundreds of armed apes quietly pouring into a concrete plaza at night sure is. These later original series Planet of the Apes movies aren't my favorites, but you've got to give the franchise runners credit. They managed to give each of the sequels a very different flavor, or at least a slightly different flavor of bleak. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. The biggest pro is Roddy McDowall as Caesar. For me, this franchise has always been Roddy and Kim's show, so the prospect of having a Planet of the Apes movies without their wonderful chimps Cornelius and Zira was a disappointing one. Kim Hunter doesn't return here, but we do get Roddy McDowall, ingeniously playing his character's son 20 years in the future. This probably wouldn't work as well in a regular film, but with the ape makeup, he's able to pull it off remarkably well here. Any similarities could be chalked up to family resemblance, but McDowall goes out of his way to imbue Caesar with a personality all his own. A personality that ends up being a good deal more fiery than his father's. The progression of Caesar's arc is interesting to watch here, and McDowall continues to impress with his Planet of the Apes performances. On the con side, this one definitely starts to grow a bit tedious after a while. It's a sub 90-minute movie, and it's actually mostly well paced throughout the first 2 acts. But once the rebellion begins, it doesn't take long for the movie to lose its intrigue and charm. It's interesting at first, and has the benefit of us rooting for the underdog, or under-ape in this case, but after a few minutes of exciting, smoky gunfire, it starts to get repetitive and feels unnecessarily dragged out. I'll admit, it's been a number of years since I last watched the theatrical cut, so maybe that's a little less tedious during the 3rd act, but the uncut version at least starts to get a little dull before the final minutes liven things up again. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Conquest of the Planet of the Apes or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Conquest of the Planet of the Apes 2.5 out of 5 paws. Although the plot points and dour angriness of the story grow a little tedious, this sequel remains an interesting action-filled follow-up to its predecessor. Roddy McDowall's continued participation in the franchise makes a big difference, and his leading role as Caesar here is one of his best Apes performances. I would recommend Conquest of the Planet of the Apes to fans of the Planet of the Apes franchise who would like to see a bit more action. This action is certainly different from the more adventure-tinged action of the first 2 films. Here, the action comes in the form of a violent ape uprising. This film has an angrier tone to it, which could definitely appeal to those who are sick of the apes just talking and would rather finally see them rise up. It's got some entertaining moments, but I can't imagine this is a film that'll appeal much to people who haven't seen the previous movies in the series. So this is definitely more of a franchise enthusiast or completionist type of movie. If you liked Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, I would recommend Detroit. This is a tense and often dark period piece set during the bloody 12th Street riot in 1967 Detroit, one of many riots that inspired the allegorical riot in Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. The story and genre are certainly quite different, but the themes regarding racial injustice and brutalization certainly overlap. If you'd like another film about a near-future revolution, you might want to check out V for Vendetta. Although it's lacking apes, the dystopian future of this film still features plagues, corruption, and fearful oppression, not to mention an effective and symbolic leader of an uprising, and more than a few visually similar shots. If you'd prefer to stick with the apes, you'll want to check out Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This served as the first film of the franchise's reboot series, and offers up an alternate version of what's essentially the same story, the rise of Caesar and the downfall of humanity. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Conquest of the Planet of the Apes? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie that features a riot? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information on this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe or add it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainely Movies. The way life should be.